Hello, everybody, and welcome to another installation in our Mythbuster series. We are explaining and debunking some of the myths surrounding disability because, in order to effectively teach about accessibility, we need to teach about disability. And today we're going to talk about the charity myth. And the charity myth is the belief that people with disabilities are inherently in need of charity. And this one is, there's a lot to this. And I'm going to speak some hard truths, and they might offend some of you, but you know what? They need to be said. So, everybody, let's put our big kid pants on, I should say, and let's explore the charity myth. So, the charity myth is this belief that people with disabilities are, you know, automatically in need of charity because and you'll find as you go through this series that these myths are interrelated. If we're not capable of achieving what other people can achieve, then we need help from the government, from society, from kind strangers. So this looks like people seeing someone with a disability regardless of competence and automatically assuming they need help. This looks like offering and insisting upon giving help that isn't needed. This looks like the assumption that if I have a sighted person with me, that person is my caregiver, even if that sighted person is my child. You can imagine how that excites the enmity of many disabled parents because children should never be caretakers for their parents. And the impact of this is considerable, right? Because you're not going to see as an equal that the person who you would help, who you believe is in need of charity, you're not going to see that person as, oh, this person can contribute to my organization, can volunteer at my church. This person is a potential resource. It's hard to see somebody as both those things at the same time. So the charity myth really leads to people with disabilities not being given the chances that we should be given. So where does this come from? Well, this really goes back to biblical times, right? The blind beggar, Jesus healing the blind man. The good Christian takes care of the deaf and the blind and the crippled and all that, right? That's what a literal interpretation of the Bible teaches us that good Christians do. Um, and that belief carries over into modern times because people aren't exposed to the tips and tricks and techniques that we use to get things done. Um, People don't know about screen readers, for example. People don't know the techniques that people in wheelchairs use to get the things done that they need to get done. Um, what techniques do people with cognitive disabilities use? People don't know because they're not directly exposed to it. And alongside that, people see examples of disabled people who fall well short of what they can do. Um, my son cites an example of a blind guy who this person is a relative of a friend of Jefferson's who, according to Jefferson, doesn't do anything but sit at home and smoke weed all day. That's the perception. I don't know if it's true or not, but in the court of public opinion, perception is often reality. I don't necessarily like that this is so, but the truth is that it is so. So If you find yourself falling prey to the charity myth, what can you do? What can you keep in mind so that you can sort out the truth? Well, remember this, and I will say this until y'all believe me. You can carve this on my tombstone. If you've met one person with a disability, you've met one person with a disability. Remember also that Hollywood and popular culture sell drama. Remember that social media perpetuates cheap, warm fuzzies. So people have a vested interest in portraying us as helpless. So take those images with a humongous grain of salt. Remember that what we can do is greater than what you can see. Oftentimes, if you might catch us, having a moment, maybe we're not on home turf, maybe we're struggling with something, maybe we're unfamiliar with the area, maybe we're just having a bad day, and maybe we don't put our most capable foot forward. Remember, you've had bad days yourself, right? I mean, how many people have, pulled out of the driveway and found themselves going in completely the wrong direction for no apparent reason? We all have bad days. We all make mistakes. We all make fools of ourselves. So when you see that, try to take some perspective. Now, what are the modern day drivers of the charity myth? And this is where I said I'm probably going to tick some people off. The older I get, the less I care. Let's face it, people with disabilities rely on government assistance a lot more than people without disabilities. Sometimes that is because the disability truly limits the person's ability to function. And sometimes that's just because of the way society works. Um, when when blind people become adults, we are encouraged to go on SSI, supplemental security income. Sometimes our parents file for SSI on our behalf sometimes without our knowledge or consent. So there becomes this association between people with disabilities and government assistance, and oftentimes we come to believe it ourselves. We often believe we're incapable of getting off, and frankly, the way these programs are set up doesn't help. Um, I believe that these programs are set up because certain politicians and certain people in government need people to be dependent on them. They disincentivize work. And there are some of us who have given up trying. I've seen it myself. I used to work for a Center for Independent Living, and it was my job to provide what training and encouragement I could to the blind people in the community and people with other disabilities as well, but I worked mostly with blind people. And I saw people who had given up. And I couldn't break through. And it's the saddest thing because they could do so much more than they're doing. And yet they don't believe themselves capable. So, what can we as people with disabilities do to combat the charity myth? Because yelling and screaming on social media about our capabilities is not helping. If it was helping, the charity myth would be a lot less prevalent than it is today. I think it takes a different approach. It takes a less immediately visible and more sustainable approach. Each one of us needs to look within ourselves and ask ourselves, am I doing more? We need to look in the mirror and challenge ourselves to be better. And then We need to ignore the doubters, block out the voices of those who say we can't, and find a way to do it. Because the more we are seen to be out there doing, the less prevalent the charity myth will be. So that's the charity myth, folks. And it got a little deep, it got a little serious, but next time I'm going to lighten things up. I'm going to talk about the virtuosity myth, which is the belief that people with disabilities are morally superior. And alongside that, the belief, contrary to overwhelming evidence to the contrary, the belief that people with disabilities don't have sex. See you for that next time, folks.